listening to Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say I'm Matt, and I'm an alcoholic addict as well.
My man,
Hey,
Matt.
Matt.
Sam, introduce your buddy. Guys known each other for a long time. What do you got, my man?
Yeah, it's I feel like I say this a lot, but this one feels so large. It is with great pleasure that I introduce a longtime friend, mentor, I would say, collaborator, Matt Bartelt of Sunlight of the Spirit. Matt, how's it going?
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it.
So I met Matt in 2017. I just started working in the behavioral health field, as you would say. And I didn't really know much. Like, I didn't know anything back then, okay? I was, at that point in time, I didn't have a lot of education or knowledge on the field, but I knew that I was sober and I knew good sobriety when I saw it. And Matt was just the epitome of, like, good sobriety. Like, I always say, and I say this to people all the time, like, Matt Bartelt has the humility that I always hope that I could emulate. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Like, he's just a good dude. He focuses on the people. He has a great product with his sober living. And he never stops. Like, I admittedly, I fall out of flow with this thing every once in a while. That's when my character defects pop up. That's when I start to get jammed up. And Matt is a guy that I've always seen that just keeps his nose to the ground. Like, he's always doing it, and he's grown so much. Like, I watched him become a dad. You know what I mean? Like,
Nice.
Watched him become a dad. Watched him become a husband. Watched him make some weird decisions, go through some different things, not be so certain, but always like full of like these huge ideas and like getting involved in stuff. And he's just somebody that I've always had a great deal of respect for. So, buddy, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Sam. The feeling's mutual, and I assure you that I am not always like perfect. You know,
I'm sure you're not, buddy.
Yeah,
No one. Yeah, I'm sure you're not. If you're sick like me, of course you're not always
like
perfect.
I you know, it's been like life is a process of like learning, right? So it's like we have to have experiences, feel pain, learn from the pain, make changes based on that, and grow towards more service of God and others, right? So that's what I try and do today.
That's like the gifts of the program, in my opinion, have always been like, I'm going to make mistakes, but what really ultimately ends up, actually, you know what? I saw a reel or a clip of Steve-O saying last night, and he said, alcoholism is the only disease that when you get better, you're better than you were before you got sick.
Yeah, that's pretty
You
crazy.
know what I mean?
Funny story about Steve-O, just while we're on it, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, the reason I'm sober today, part of the reason I'm sober today is because of my cousin. You know, I had a cousin, Steve, and struggled with, you know, alcoholism and drug addiction. He ended up going out to sober living in California, and you know, came back from California, and he was like, you know, ultimately, like, he ended up getting a sponsor out there, and he's like, it's Steve-O. And I was like, I don't believe you. I was like, call him right now, you know?
No way.
And he called him, went to voicemail, and I wrote it off, you know?
Yeah.
You
Of
know,
course, it went to voicemail.
Right. Like,
Sure.
a little bit, you know, like, unfortunately, like, my cousin overdosed, you know, and died, like.
Oh,
probably,
I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
know
like
that.
a year and a half later. It's, you know, it's what happens, you know. Like,
For sure.
like, probably like you, like most of the people I grew up with aren't here anymore, right? So, but yeah, so he passed away, and like I used to cut hair. That was like my first career.
I remember, yeah.
it was my
That was your thing.
first career in recovery. And like I would cut my aunt's hair. So she came over to get her hair cut, and she's like, I got like a comedy event in the city tonight, and she's like, Steve's old sponsor called me. Apparently, he does comedy, and I was like, he was telling the truth, dude. It was crazy.
Yeah,
so like,
what
I
a full circle moment.
yeah.
Did you go see him?
I didn't, because I didn't have an invite. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It was
man.
just his mom. You know, I didn't want to like, you know,
You didn't
press
want to
it.
crash that party,
wow.
dude.
But
Yeah.
it's cool. I did end up getting like his number, you know, and I haven't reached out to him. I haven't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it.
I get you.
So yeah, but no.
That is kind of funny. So, Maddie, like, you know, just a little backtrack on you,
Yeah.
as much as you're comfortable with sharing with the guests, with the audience. And I guess I've never really, you know, we've been friends for so long. I feel like most of our conversations that we've had over the years have been 12-step calls, but we've never really actually engaged in that together. I don't think. Maybe I spoke at Sunlight once. I think so. Maybe not.
I don't think you ever made it out.
No?
I was always trying to get you out for
Oh,
some
man.
reason. Like
Oh,
I don't
man.
know why.
Some
we ever
friend
made-
you are.
Now I have to go.
God.
I have to be there next week.
You've sent speakers though, definitely. You've sent
I've
really good
sent
people.
speakers
Yeah, I
and
think
never
you-
spoken
How about
myself.
that?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
a piece of shit. Oh my
Damn,
God.
seriously, man.
Well,
No,
gonna
no.
tell on myself.
No,
right
you've
now.
always been helpful to the guys in the house, and whenever somebody
man.
needed something, you were there. I don't
Buddy.
think you've ever heard me speak either.
No, that's
the
what I
thing,
was
yeah.
getting at. Is I never heard.
Well,
you
we're going to
speak.
hear it today.
Yeah.
I just would love to get a little bit more. I mean, we all show up to alcoholism or drug addiction in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the story of, like, I always say on the podcast, like, I was born this way. I was born with a defected character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I chose to treat it with drugs and alcohol. It took years in sobriety to learn that I've always had this. Like, I was born a pickle. You know, people say you're a cucumber, you become a
Yeah,
pickle.
right.
You can't go back. I was born a pickle.
Right.
You know what I mean? I came out the jar. But I always love to hear the story of our guests and how they arrived. So, like, just give me like a little bit of insight. I know you grew up in Montgomery County.
Yeah, I did. So actually, like looking back, it's a funny story. Like I grew up on the grounds of a facility. Like from age 1 to 9, grew up on the grounds of a facility. My dad and his first wife ran it. It's called Silver Springs Martin Luther School. Large nonprofit for kids with like foster kids with behavioral problems. A lot of times they come and live there. There's also a school there and stuff like that. But it was beautiful grounds, like 40 acres, right? So like, didn't think much of it. That was like normal. I didn't have neighbors. I was close with my sister. So pretty much like, I guess it's not a normal childhood, but yeah, like, so when I feel like looking back at my childhood, I think of it pretty fondly, like up until that time, right? Like until I was like about 9 years old, right? So when I was 9 years old, my parents got divorced. It was like very like tumultuous. There was a lot of fighting, like a lot of, violence to some degree,
Oh, wow.
My mom ended up moving to like the Lansdale area. So for a very short time, there was like split custody, right? But I don't think like as a kid, like I acted out a lot,
Okay.
like I think like the divorce probably affected me a lot more than I thought it did.
Definitely.
Absolutely. How old were you when they were
I
divorced?
was 9.
And
I
that's
was
a
9.
that's a terrible age. For
Yeah,
that,
I
too.
feel like it's better if it's like younger or like when they're
Or
adult-
much older.
Much older, yeah.
exactly. So like I think it affected me like pretty strongly. So I acted out. I wasn't listening to like my dad while he was there. And like he came from like a residential treatment facility. Back then, like residential treatment facilities, like they had like, restraint policies and stuff like that. So my dad would use all like these restraints from like that he would use on the kids at Silver Springs, like
Oh,
on me,
wow.
to the point where like my sister would like be like crying, like calling my mom, and like I did not feel safe there. I didn't feel safe there, like I remember at one point, like I wanted to go to my mom's. It wasn't the week that I was supposed to be there. And I jumped out the window, and from Plymouth Meeting, I think I was like, at like 9 years old.
Oh, this
9,
was
10.
in Plymouth Meeting?
Yeah,
Is where the
Plymouth
place
Meeting.
was. Is it still there?
Yeah, it's called Gemma Services now. That's what
Okay.
it is. It's a nonprofit. They're no longer like on the board, but or involved. They retired. But so I ended up going like at like 9, 10 years old, like walking all the way from Plymouth Meeting to Lansdale.
No
way.
way.
And,
Wow.
like, drinking out of creeks and stuff. Like, it was weird, like thinking back on that. But that was the desperation I felt.
What's
at the
so
time.
funny is knowing
Yeah.
you now, like I could totally see it.
Yeah, right.
I could totally see it.
That's probably
I
what
could
I would-
totally see it. I could drop Matt in like the middle of Montana and he would like look
Yeah.
up and like find his way home. You know what I mean? Like he
Totally.
just could, dude.
It was like my first
Yeah.
real hike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
My first real.
Yeah, dude. So I ended up there. I went back to my mom's, and I think that was the point where my dad was like, "Listen, I'm not even gonna try anymore. He could just stay with his mom." So I did. Like I stayed there, and so really that's where kind of my dad stopped being present in my life.
Yeah.
And like when he was present, like it wasn't ideal, right? So. So I started like getting connected with the community in Lansdale, right? Like, and I felt like, I don't know, like looking back, I know that it was a feeling of inadequacy that I had. Like I did not feel like I connected with the people around me. Like, and I wanted more than anything to have like attachments, and I think that's what kids want. They want attachments, right? They need to have
Like a sense of purpose, almost.
right, like a
yeah.
friend,
And family,
like a tribe. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
of
You
course.
need your tribe.
You want to
So-
feel like a part of.
yeah, exactly. So,
and
know,
you don't want that tribe to be like the Bloods or the Crips,
right?
Or
Definitely
you know,
not.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at that point, like, I was scared of everything. You know what I mean? And I wanted to be around the people that everybody else was like a little scared of. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Absolutely,
it gave me a
dude.
sense of security, right? Like, so I did whatever I could to fit in with this group of people. And that led me to do some weird stuff as a kid, you know? Like, I remember the one time, you know, me and a bunch of friends, like, ended up, like, we were, like skating, and, like, we realized that the school was unlocked. The middle school, Pembroke Middle School, was unlocked, and so we went
Like
in
over
there.
the weekend.
Yeah, it was over the
Yeah.
weekend. We went in and we were skating around inside the school in the hallways and stuff like that. And like one of the kids was like, I'm gonna pee on this bookshelf, and I was like, I have to one up. Well, I'm gonna pee on the teacher's desk. You know what I mean? So I did that when I was, of course, like they called one of our friends. You know what I mean? They saw him in school. When we were leaving, there was like a janitor, and the janitor like recognized one of the kids.
I was
we were
gonna
with.
say, like, what year was
Yeah,
this?
this was. Oh my
Because there aren't cameras, or maybe
there
there
wasn't,
are.
There wasn't cameras back
There
then.
weren't cameras in the school back
cameras.
then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could get away
Yep.
with peeing on your teacher's desk.
Yeah. So like, you know, like
Which is crazy.
yeah. So I ended up getting like, you know, like a trespassing charge, informal probation. So this was like around 12 years old. I got put on like informal probation. I had just turned 12. At the same time, like, you know, I found alcohol. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I found alcohol, and I remember the feeling like when I drank. Like I remember when I first had that feeling, and I'm telling you, it was the best treatment for the fear that I was suffering from, for the anxiety that I was suffering from. Like the moment I drank, like I felt like I was like, okay, this is actually like how I'm supposed to feel. You know, like I felt like
Yeah.
how everybody else looked, and I know you hear that a lot. You
Yeah,
hear that a
we,
lot
we
in the
had
room.
arrived. Yeah,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
they say.
yeah. Like, so, like,
Yep.
I was like, okay, I could live like this, and so I tried to be in that state as much as possible, you know. And in doing that, I wasn't listening to the school, I wasn't listening to my mom, you know, and my mom ended up like, you know, she ended up kicking me out one day because like I don't remember the details of it, but you know, I ended up staying at like a friend's house, and the friend's mom was asking like, you know, why aren't you at home? And ended up calling children and youth on my mom. So you know,
You called children and youth
no,
on your mom?
my
The
friend's mom called
Oh,
children
okay.
and youth. They got involved. They ended up saying that, hey, my mom's house wasn't suitable for me, that I should go live with my grandmom and my aunt. So I did that, and then I ended up getting in like a physical fight with my aunt. Like, you
No.
know, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the police ended up coming to the house, and they took me to like a facility, right? And that was
Similar to the one you grew up on, I'm
right,
sure.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was really funny.
What
So
a full circle
So
moment.
from 9, like by the time I was like I guess like 3 years of not being on the grounds of a facility, right? Which is funny. So I ended up back in. It was a behavioral health hospital in Fort Washington, and from there, it still exists. It's under a different name. From there, they brought up the trespassing charges and stuff, and I went into like juvenile detention, right? Where they
Oh, you went to full juvie.
yes, yeah. So I went to juvie, 12 years old, like early 12 years old. And from there, they put me in another long-term facility, which is actually right around the corner from where I live right now. It's no longer operational. But yeah, so I ended up in that program for like 11 months. And I do really good. I do really good in programs.
Yeah.
You know?
You like being institutionalized.
Yeah,
Same. Yeah. I'm with it.
Yeah, so like if you're telling me like what time I can eat, what time I got to shower, what time it's time for bed, you know, like I do good. You know, I ended up like being like the highest level you could be there, like house manager type deal, and yeah. But my problem is that like when I have any bit of freedom, like you know, like I want to experience the freedom it feels to be disconnected from my
Right.
thoughts, right?
Got
like, So that's what I was seeking. So on the weekends, you know, I would do whatever I could. I would drink cough medicine, you know, like, you know, I would anything that wouldn't come up in my system, right? And then I would
Any
drink
and everything,
alcohol,
yeah, triple Cs,
whatever.
yeah.
Yep, of course, you know, like, and then so ended up getting out of there. The problem is once I get out, like, and I'm around my friends, you know, like,
Did you like go to school there? Did they have like a school
yeah, they had a
factor?
school there, and I went
Yeah.
to school there for a little bit afterwards, you know, and yeah, but ultimately, like, that was my pattern. I'd go into a facility, I'd get out, I wouldn't be able to stay sober. You know, somebody would ask me the wrong question, you
Right,
know,
yeah, of course.
and then I'd be back at it, you know, and you know, like I would, as a kid, I'd smoke weed, and weed's in your system so long, and they used to lock
Forever.
you up for that. Now kids, you know,
Yeah.
they,
Oh my
they don't have
God,
to worry
yeah.
about that. But that I think a lot of the majority of my childhood was because, you know, because I couldn't keep it. It was always violations. you
Always
know?
violations on account of the weed.
So-
and you're a skinny guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that usually means it'll leave your system quicker.
Faster, I know.
Right.
So that what I'm saying is he was smoking weed.
Yeah, no
You know
doubt.
what I mean? Yeah.
All day.
But yeah, so and that progressed, you know what I mean? Like I think part of the reason was like, hey, I didn't want it in my system that long. I started getting into like club drugs and, you know, like at the same time, like this is all like in between, like, you
How
know,
old are
being
you
in
at this point?
facilities. When I started like that, I was probably my first rehab was like 15, and
Yeah.
I know at that point it was like I was really into club drugs. Like we would go to parties in the city and stuff like that, and into the rave scene, and then you know, it progressed further from there. Around that same time, like, you know, like I guess it was maybe around like 12 or 13. Like I had, you know, like I was out walking in like a neighborhood, and a cop in our neighborhood, and a cop drove by, and I had like a slingshot on me or something like that, and the cop was like, you know, what do you got there? And I was like, oh, that's a slingshot. He's like, did your mom know you're out here? And I was like, yeah, she's like right down the street. So he like took me back to the house. He was talking to my mom, he was talking to me, and like we started to get along. You know what I mean? Me and this cop were like, you know, like he seemed like a good dude, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, so like he started to like, you know, take me out to lunch every once in a while, and like, you know, like we started to spend a lot of time together, and he started to become like almost like a father figure. And this was like for years, and he would watch as I would go away to different facilities, you know, and I'd come back, you know, like, and he was kind of became like a staple in my life at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Where was the cop from?
Upper Gwinnett Police Department.
Upper Gwinnett?
Yeah. And, you know, so, you know, time had passed, you know, like I was getting harder into the club drugs. I was very involved in
What, like ketamine,
ketamine,
LSD,
ecstasy, you know, all that, you know.
fries your brain.
Right. Yeah, I was spending a lot of time down like in the clubs in Philly. Like there was Club Space. There was a place
Shampoo,
called God's
yeah.
Basement. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff back then.
Yeah.
And and that was my tribe at that point, right? And I always had like a very close connection with the friend group that I had. There was a good friend I had named Billy. There was another good friend I had named Brian. Billy's no longer with us. Brian got sober, so it's really good to see. Yeah, so you know, basically, like, you
How
know,
old were you then, roughly?
like probably about 15, right?
15-ish?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then basically like ended up getting into harder drugs. I realized that, like, you know, like I always liked the dopier ecstasy pills, and I realized that like I could get that through taking Oxycontin.
The red ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I
of
could get that
course.
through taking Oxycontin. So I got hooked on oxys, and ultimately, like, that became too expensive. You know the story, and then ended up on heroin, right? So at the same time, I was like in a pretty toxic relationship. Long story short, like, you know, there's probably I could talk for hours just on various details of my life, but that the police officer that ended up being like a father figure, you know, I ended up getting sexually abused by him, you know, and you know, at the time, like, it was just very confusing. Like,
Was that like one of those things that it was like years in the making?
It was.
like
because
months in the
didn't-
making. It was like a
didn't-
grooming
It
almost.
wasn't. Yeah, it didn't happen. Like it was crazy. It didn't happen like right away. It took years. Like
Oh
and,
my
and really to
God,
the point where
shit.
I was like, you know, it was more like, for me at the time, I would have said it was more painful the abandonment of having a father figure than the
Jeez.
Oh, of course,
intimacy
yeah.
itself.
The
Yeah.
big breaking of
So
trust.
that was, you know, that like, I wouldn't at the time say like it shaped a lot of the decisions that I made and things that I did in my life, but looking back on it, I know
Yeah,
it did. I know it
dude, of
did,
course.
absolutely. And it was all subconscious. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize that, but you know, like I say that today, and I say that from a public place because I think that there needs to be more people that can talk about the things that they've been
Of
through.
course,
Because
yeah.
if you look at the data, like actually, there's just as many boys being sexually abused as there is females.
Oh, definitely.
I
You know,
believe that.
and the reason is because of boys, there's shame. People won't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there needs to be a platform for that.
Yeah.
I think that that's like a lot of times addiction stems from these traumas that happened when we were younger that haven't been addressed, right?
Yeah, Vinny always talks about a
Absolutely.
precipitating factor.
Yeah.
That's like one of
I,
a thing
that's
we
one
talk
of my
about a
big
lot.
things. Like,
Yeah.
what's the precipitating factor? Like,
Right.
what happened
Yeah.
prior to you getting into these hard drugs? And
Yeah.
that's,
Right.
I mean, that's
And
right
that
there.
added on it. And I still had problems with drugs before that happened. I do want to clarify that too. But I'm sure that didn't help, you know.
Not
and
at
think
all.
I think like, you know, the tendencies were built into me like during the pain of the divorce as a childhood. And I feel like because of coming from an abusive household too, like I was ultra sensitive, you know what I mean? So like I had to be very sensitive to like what kind of mood my dad was in, you know, what kind of mood
Right.
my mom was in, because I needed to know.
You were always walking on eggshells,
right
man.
at any point I might need to get out of Dodge.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? So I think that was cooked into me, and it wasn't until later in life, going through the steps, you know, going through therapy, that I was able to like put some of these things together. And I think it's important to have an understanding of like how your brain works, so you can know those factors when you're making decisions in the future. So
Can I ask you a question? How long until you were like able to talk about that openly?
it was pretty quick. Actually,
really? That's
Actually,
great.
my
That's
group,
good.
my friend group at the time, it was like I said, my buddy Billy, Brian, that we were very, very close, you know. And I remember I called them right away and I told them what happened, you know, and they came, both of them came to my house and they were like, you know, what should we do to this guy? And I was
Right.
like, I was like,
Exactly.
we're not, like,
Oh my
there's no
God.
need to do, like,
Yeah,
you
let's
know,
go.
I don't even
A
want
bunch of 16-year-old kids
Go
are
to a
like,
cop's house.
Let's go
Right,
beat up this cop.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's crazy. And the thing is, like, for me, like, there was shame, right? Because
Of course.
there's shame. So I'm like, dude, let's leave it be, because I don't want this to become like public knowledge, right? I don't want, like, I'm in, you know,
Exactly. You're in high school.
yeah, just barely in high school, you know what I mean? So it's like, so that, you know, got harder and harder into drugs, you know, like heroin, like basically, like, you know, this was back when heroin was actually heroin. I was in North Philly like
Right.
every day, you
Yeah.
know. Like,
Heroin was heroin.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah, it's different today, but you know, like so yeah, things progressed.
You were 15-ish, 16?
Yeah, you know what? I'll add this part to the story too. So I ended up like through this whole process. Like I said, I was in and out of treatments. I was in treatment in Florida. I think it was like the first Florida model treatment center. And then I went to a place today in court. It's no longer open, so it's not a plug for them. But or maybe they are. I don't know. But
We're not worried
I
about
went
today.
to
in
their
court.
adolescent program. I loved it because you could smoke cigarettes. You know, I was like,
Really?
oh my God.
As an
Yeah, they
adolescent?
used
He's
to-
not even old enough to smoke.
Buddy, I
technically.
was looking. I wish I
They
could
would.
have
They
did
would
that.
let
You nuts.
underage kids smoke cigarettes.
In Bucks
there.
County,
Dude,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was Bucks. Yeah, your parents would like drop off cartons. So I was happy to
talking
go
about
there.
that place.
Yeah, I was there for 9 months. 9 months. And then I remember like I wasn't going to tell anybody about that situation. And then the counselor there is like, I wanted to get into this extended reentry program where I could actually work in the community and save money and go home on the weekends and stuff like that. In order to do that, my counselor was like, well, you need to report this police officer. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever I need to do. You know, I was like, but the one thing is like, I don't want it to be out in the public. I was not ready for that to be known.
Right.
So I remember they had
That makes sense.
yeah, they had like two cops come from like Upper Gwinnett and like interview me. So I told them the story
Not from the same police
from the
department.
same police
Really?
department. Yeah, and ultimately I think what happened was like he ended up like losing his job at that department, and I kind of let it go at that. And I hadn't talked to him, you know, clearly since
Right.
then.
Sure.
But yeah, so you know, my addiction progressed. You know, like I ended up like, you know, on heroin you know, like physically addicted to heroin. Barely made it through high school. I remember, you know, like I was at North Penn High School, and we were supposed to graduate, and I couldn't graduate because I had to detox. I was detoxing in the Poconos.
Oh, wow.
You know, so a lot of stuff happened. Like I was like, heroin was causing problems in my life, clearly. You know, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop using heroin. I tried to stop using heroin. So I I got off heroin. Then I ended up just picking up alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, and I picked up alcohol hard, you know, to the point where like, you know, in 3 months I got 3 DUIs.
Wow.
Crazy, man. Like terrible luck too. Like throughout this, like I never.
Or maybe the best luck.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean?
In retrospect.
That,
in
yeah,
retrospect,
kind of
it
forced
is.
the issue a little
Well,
bit.
yeah, like pain's the touchstone, right? Like I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the pain that I've been through. But yeah, so ended up getting some DUIs. I remember one of my DUIs, it was on 113 and 29, and I ran a red light and I hit a car, and it's the magistrate's niece, right?
Oh, wow.
Dude, could you, like, you know,
That's bad luck.
That's the kind of luck I had, you know, like, so yeah, so a lot of damage, you know, and like I could talk for hours just about like all the stuff that's happened and all that. Everybody's got that part, you know. Everyone has their pain. Everyone has their reason that for coming into the, you know, getting sober, coming into the room, making changes in their life, right? But I know that like I fought the idea of like letting go. I did, like, you know,
It's
Don't we
scary.
all?
yeah, I you know, like I coming into rooms, like I would see the steps. The steps didn't make sense to me. It didn't look like a legitimate solution for the problems that I had, you know, and you
Just
know,
the words alone when you're that young. I remember looking at the steps on the wall and kind of being like, yeah, I get it. I didn't fucking, the weight of those words.
yeah.
I was so far away from being able to grasp that.
Well,
you know
we
what
need
I
a
mean?
guide, right? We do. Like, and that's why sponsorship's important. And we need a guide. And I feel like, you know, like you're not ready until you're ready. You're not going to hear it until you're ready to listen.
Right.
And you're not going to, you really have to seek it out, you know? So it's I
So
remember,
how many times did you attempt to get sober?
I was in treatment 13 times before I got sober. And the last treatment center I went into, I had left there twice prior within probably 6 months, like AMA. The first time because they found like hepatitis in my blood from intravenous drug use. And I used
So
that
they
as
kicked you out at that
no,
point?
I used
you
that
left.
as an excuse
I got
to
you.
leave, and then I went back. And I remember the medical director at the place was like, "Dude, if you leave AMA one more time, you're not coming back here." And
How old were you?
I was 20. I just turned 22. And I remember.
I love when they used to tell me that, Sam, you can't come back here if you leave. I'd be like, you're going to let me back.
Yeah, I
you
did.
know what I mean?
I did.
I would every time they let me back. Every single time they would let me back
Yeah.
because I was such a con man, dude. I was a con artist. They would literally do my intake over the phone. They'd be like, you really have to stay this time. Like, we're putting you on a behavioral contract. I'd be like, I know, you're right. I can't do this anymore. You guys always try to help me, and I just don't take it seriously. I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
And by day fucking 6, I'm like,
I'm out.
I'm
I
getting
know.
out of the shower. I'm like, pack my bags.
What happened?
I'm like,
Give me my stuff out
I
of the
have
safe.
I have to be at my shift behind the bar in 4 hours.
Right.
You need
You
to
know-
pack my shit. I'm leaving now. Like, dude,
Totally true.
every time.
Yeah, I think this time what was different, right? What was different this time is that I had completely like beat the self-reliance out of me, dude. Like I was actually like I was hearing what people were saying. Like I was seeking solutions, you know, and I feel like nobody can give that to anybody else. Like it has to come usually like through humility and through the pain of life and living the way that we're living. There's a lot of people that can keep that from happening from somebody, right? And I see that very often in what I do, you know, but like, yeah, so I mean, like the conditions were just perfect for me to let go, right? And I did at that time. Like I was ready. I was like 100% committed with the same kind of like laser focus that I did on getting high. I switched that to like seeking direction, you know, seeking God and doing stuff that was uncomfortable for me, you know. So, but
And
yeah,
that's the divine intervention, dude.
dude,
Like,
it changed. Yeah, really, man. Like that's
I've been talking about this a lot lately. I think, like my relationship with a power greater than myself that I choose to call God is so apparent when I think, and especially when we do the podcast and I hear people's stories, or I see people that like just can't get it, man. And I'm like, what was it?
yeah.
Like, what was it that one day me, an egomaniac, right? A feared up egomaniac like me just decided to like completely get honest and listen to another man. What was that, dude?
It's grace.
How is that possible?
It's grace.
Because to me, that's
that moment of sanity.
dude, that's my conception of God.
Well, that's
because
it.
up until that point, I had tried so many times to bullshit my way into like faking it until I made it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
dude, I could tell you passages out of the first 164 pages of the book when I wasn't even remotely close to getting sober.
Right, you
know
were
what
just
I mean?
memorizing
They
stuff.
didn't mean, because I was there. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But it didn't mean anything to me. And there just came a day where I literally, not to disclose too much about me. This is Matt's podcast, but it happened, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened. You know what I mean? And I greatly wonder why that happens for some of us and not others.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I agree, dude. I totally resonate with what you're saying, and I think like what you're describing, right? Like that opportunity that you got is grace, right? Like, and you can't demand grace. Grace is a free gift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's something that's given you from God, right? Like,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as like, like I heard a cool analogy one time. It was like, like a farmer doesn't grow corn. You know what I mean? What a farmer does is he like prepares the soil. He plants the seeds. He puts them in a spot that's going to have a lot of light. He waters them. Fertilizes them, and then God grows the corn. And it's the same thing with us. It's like I can prepare my life in such a way that it's able to receive grace, or I cannot. Right?
Yeah,
So
of
it's
course.
like, and
I can close off.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
big
So, and
time.
I think that's what the steps are about. Like, you don't know at what point in that process you're going to have like a spiritual awakening, which is the goal of the steps, right?
For
Like,
sure.
you don't know what point in that process it is, but like if you do everything that they're telling you to do, like at some point it's going to happen. Like it will.
It's funny. I felt my life start to change from the moment I did a fearless, thorough, and honest fifth step with another man. That's what I would have told you. That was when I changed, and it wasn't until
at the fifth step?
yeah, with the first sponsor that I went through the book with, and it changed so much. My part was so apparent. Like by the end of it, like I cried, dude. You know what I mean? I saw my relationships for exactly what they were throughout the course of my life in one huge moment, and I thought that the third step prayer, the seventh step prayer, these prayers were resonating with me like big time, dude.
Yeah.
But the longer I've been sober, to me, like I just said, like the miracle was the obsession just going away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I forget. Like that's the thing about me is like I honestly am at a point in time where I forget what it's like to drink.
No, I get it.
I've grown so who am I talking in 9 years? Vinny's been sober for 2/3 of his life, dude. You know what I mean?
39 years.
He's been sober for 2/3 of his life. Like I don't remember,
Pain's not that close anymore.
dude. I don't. It's not there. You know
but
what I mean?
you can still think about it.
Yeah.
I can, and
It
there
might
are
not
times
be that close, but in your brain, it happened yesterday.
for sure. And but the longer I stay, I forgot that, and through the line of work and through doing the podcast and through remaining relevant in 12-step fellowship, like you see it, but like I just can't believe that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really can't believe it. And I called you. I guess it was last weekend. We have a mutual friend, really old friend of mine that I've tried to help for like years, and he's just a class A alcoholic. It's funny, you and I were talking earlier today. Like it seems like we don't come across run of the mill alcoholics
Yeah, they're
anymore.
just alcoholic. Right?
Yeah, like we see a lot of like mental
just
health
drug
and there's
addict,
all
really.
yeah, or just that. But
Yeah.
this dude is an alcoholic of the highest caliber.
Yep.
Like he is a stone cold, self-centered, feared up alcoholic. And for years, I probably helped get him a scholarship into treatment maybe like 4 times.
Wow.
Over the course of the last couple of years. And this is a guy that let me sleep on his couch at his temple dorm when I had nowhere to go. Like he made sure I was always going to be okay
Right.
back when I was drinking. And for years, I've been like, you need to go here and you need to do this. You need to go to sober living. We've had him go through Matt's sober living, and you need to fucking fully engage. And his ego has never, ever dropped enough for him to engage. And
So he's still out there?
He's out there right now. And he had a daughter 6 months ago. And for me, that was like a huge precipitating factor. I think that's a big part of, why the desire went away from me. But, he was asking me for another scholarship, and I had to call Matt, and I had to say, like, am I doing this guy a service at this point? You know what I mean? Like, I had to call him, and I was like, at this point, am I causing more harm than good? And that was like a really profound realization, because at the end of the day, if this guy wanted to get sober, he could go into the ER tomorrow, get placed in a state-run detox, follow fucking recommendations, and get fucking sober, as opposed to me getting him a scholarship where a car is going to come pick him up.
Right,
And
a lush
you know what I
facility,
mean? Like,
sure.
it's not helping him at this point. And that was a really, really, really tough realization for me to come to. And that's what brings me, what I was saying is, like, that guy reminds me of what it's like to be drunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that dude in particular, who I love so much, like, I would do anything for him. You know what I mean? And it was so hard to, like, reach that realization.
I think it comes down with that kind of stuff, Sam, is like, it's a person's threshold for discomfort, right? Like, at what point, like, are you willing to let go of your way, your self-reliance, and take advice that doesn't make sense to you? Like, at what point? And some people can do that with their family intact, with a beautiful house, 2 cars, and white picket fence, and they're able to put their self-reliance down and follow someone's direction. And then there's some people, like, the story you were just saying. It's like, hey, you've lost everything, you've got everything to live for, but like, can't let go.
It's just not there. You know what I mean? And it breaks my heart sometimes, especially when it's that close to home. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And I think that just also shows that, like, like you said, like, the sobriety that we have today is a gift, and it needs to be nurtured, right? Like, the pain isn't as close as it used to be. And the funny thing about sobriety is that, like, you put time together, you got like 18 years, 30 years, or whatever, and you don't feel as sick as you used to, right? Like, I don't, my life doesn't look as dysfunctional, and the world will tell me that I look like a normal person,
And
right?
you have on paper, you are a normal person.
Everything else everything checks out, but I have this I still have to do the things that I did when I got this, when I got this gift. I still have to do that stuff every day.
Oh yeah, those defects will come right to the
they come
the top,
back, dude.
buddy.
And that's what, like you were saying in the beginning, you're like, oh, Matt's always been like, no, dude, this is like a roller coaster.
Oh, I
Life
know,
is like
buddy.
a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I just periods where I'm just, like, where pain pushes me into structure of seeking God and helping others, and then life gets busy, and I put that on the back burner, and then the way that I look at the world changes. You know what I mean?
And you have such a good platform to do that too, with Sunlight. And
so like, it's been a crazy story, man. Life's been crazy. Like, like, I have, more time in sobriety than I had out there using too. So that's an experience in itself. So I could speak for hours just on my experience in sobriety and the troubles and the hard times that I've had in sobriety. Some of them almost equally as painful as the stuff I went through when I was using.
Absolutely. It's called life.
Yeah, right. But through it all, like, like, I know, like that my job here on this earth is to help God's kids. You know what I mean? And like, and that's been my mission, and I try and do that on a daily basis. I know that, like, when I'm thinking about other people, whatever problems that I have, which aren't real problems anyway, like, it's just, it doesn't matter as much, and the less I can think about myself, the more I can connect with God. And really, like, there's nothing there. You can't put a price tag on the peace. You can't. Like, there's freedom in your life being less about you. Right?
Oh, it makes things so much more quiet.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when you're, like, really having a hard time, and you, like, call your sponsor, and you call someone, and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going through, and you think that your problem is, like, so unique. You know what I mean? And it's only happening to you. And then the guy on the other side of the phone just says, why don't you go fucking help somebody? And it's like the worst thing to hear. But he's right, dude. You know he's right, because you're just, like, manifesting over privileged, sober problems. And it's just like one of those things that, like, I just fucking hate to hear. When someone tells me to pray about it, I'm just like, oh my God. It makes me so mad, because they're so right all the time, and it's so simple. We make it so complicated.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. We complicate the hell out of it. So how long do you have in the program?
18 years.
18?
18 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, and like, I've made most of the amends that I can make, and I try and live. I try and sponsor people. I try and stay accountable with people every day, and yeah, it's been a journey, So what else can I?
It's
say?
a great journey.
Yeah.
It's a great journey, a lifelong journey you're on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something I've always admired about Matt is he cut hair when he first got sober, and you were like a big IT guy, right?
I did that after cutting hair. Yeah.
So Matt, and you still
You were a barber first.
You still cut.
I actually went to cosmetology school, Jean Madeline, West
cut
Philadelphia.
hair,
So
yeah.
I did like women's hair mostly. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
How long? When did you go to that school?
So once I got sober, I got sober at 22, and I guess my first job was finishing cabinets with my sister's boyfriend. He's still at that job. It's amazing. Like he's been there like so long. But yeah, I did that, and then I was like, you know what? I want to go to school to cut hair. I've always been like, I was into graffiti when I was younger and stuff like. I've always been like into art and creativity.
Cool.
And that was a way that I felt like I could make money on it. Like so I went to beauty school, and I didn't have a license at the time. I had lost my license for 8 years. So I always tell new people when you're coming in, like they're like, man, I can't get around, I can't get to this job. I was like, I made it from Schwanksville to West Philadelphia every day and got valedictorian of my beauty school.
That's saying something.
Yeah. So,
Can you imagine him going to beauty school in West Philly? How funny is that?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
People, it's crazy.
And valedictorian too.
I know. No,
Did you have to did you take the bus or did you
So
literally walk?
He probably took the train, and
So
then
I
he
took
probably
the-
took the subway.
That's it.
Yeah.
Train and
Probably
subway?
took the regional
Same
rail
route.
and
Oh,
the
yeah,
subway
yeah.
out west.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I did that. I was in school I did that for probably I think like just about a year, and then I worked in Old City, Philadelphia, at a salon called Lakshmi. Then I worked at one in Manioc called Art Plus Science, and I went to one in Bluebell. And then I realized I didn't want to do hair. You know what I mean? I did that. I was like, hey, I'll do it on the side. I'll always have that in my pocket, but like I'd rather do something like I think I have severe ADHD is part of it too.
Could be. Could be.
So, like I started doing IT. I got some certifications like A+, CompTIA certifications. I started doing some CCNA stuff, like some networking stuff. And I was doing that for a little bit, and I liked it. You know what I mean? I enjoyed it. I ended up working at the company that I lived on the grounds.
Really?
My father was still working there, and then my dad's first wife, Ruth. And Ruth, I used to steal from her. Like I would steal from her in active addiction. And through the process, like of making amends, I went back to Ruth and I was like, hey, like you used to give me money to go shopping. I'd spend most of it, get you the cheapest stuff possible. Like that was wrong of me. Like, how can I make that right? And she was like, well, I could use some help around the house on Tuesdays. So I would go there on Tuesdays, and I helped her out, and she's like, okay, your debt is repaid, but I still want you to continue to work here on Tuesdays. And that turned into me getting that IT job at Silver Spring. So I ended up working there. And at the same time, I was starting, I owned a house in Lansdale, and with my girlfriend, and who is now my wife, and we were going through some trouble. We were having some relationship issues to the point where, there was a relapse. Like my wife relapsed, and it was actually God was there through that whole thing, and I can explain that later on because she didn't go to the rooms. She wasn't in the rooms, but she should have been. And so she ended up moving back in with her mom. So I ended up in this house that I had a mortgage on by myself, and with no license, and in a significant amount of emotional distress, right?
I'm
so
sure.
like a good AA guy, I went to the meetings and I was sharing about the suffering that I was having. I was looking for guidance. I went back through the 12 steps, and like we do, I tried to take the attention off myself and help other people. So I was around sponsoring guys. It's funny, when you're having relationships problems in AA, it's like you attract everybody else that has relationships problems. You know what I mean? So it was it was like a glum. We were like the glum lot, you know what I mean? So, but no, through that process, it's funny. I started moving people into my own house.
That's
renting
cool.
out rooms in my own house, and together we went to meetings together. We stayed sober, and and that's kind of how my recovery house started, you know. So I ended up living with people. I ran out of space in my house, so me and my first sponsee were like, well, why don't we buy a house specifically for that? So we did. We got one in North Wales. We had talked to the borough twice about what our plans were, and then we got the house. And right before we opened, the borough manager switched, and then we got a notice on our door that we were in violation of the code, like the local zoning code. So we had to go to a zoning hearing, and that's where that all came about. So I ended up like 4 years litigation with North Wales Borough.
Did you have people in your home while you were going through litigation?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's cool.
So you know, like that process, they can't kick you guys.
Right.
They can't kick you out, you know, while it's still in litigation. So that was a blessing. Another way that my company wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that. So
yeah, they would have starved you out at that point.
Yeah, and you know, we had a lot of support. You know, like I said, we found like a lawyer fell into our lap that had set case law for Oxford House. Amazing guy. You know, and it's cool because I've been able to help other people that have had this struggle now, you know.
Oh, he's the end all be all for if you need help with your sober living in Pennsylvania.
I feel like, you know, I like if somebody's trying to help people, I want to do everything I can do to support it. I don't see people as competitors. I don't, you know, like I really believe that, you know, we're here to, you know, to solve this problem, right? Like we really
there's enough to go around.
Yeah,
That's for sure. Well, how many sober homes do you have now?
So I have 7 altogether.
You have 7?
Yeah, 7.
What's the name of the sober home?
So our program's called Sunlight of the Spirit House.
Sunlight what?
Sunlight of the Spirit House.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Sunlight of the Spirit. And you know, it's funny. Matt used to just let people live in his house.
I did. I had people living in my house
and I
for a
used to
long
call
time.
that the sunset of the spirit. Because that's where you go when it's the end of your rope.
There's no room.
It's funny. Yeah. So me and my wife, you know, clearly we got back together, you know, and at that time, like she wasn't used to people living in the house, you know what I mean? But I had all these people living in the house.
That could be a problem.
Right. So she was very patient with me and let it go on for years. But once my son turned 2 years old, she's like, "Man, listen,
they gotta go." I was gonna say when your son was born, they should have hit the street, but that's just me.
I know. Yeah. But no, it's been a journey, and you know, like I love the work that I do. You know,
you do it so well, brother. Not even, and I don't say that about everyone, but like, Sunlight of the Spirit is like the kind of sober living that I got sober in. You know what I mean? Which is you show up, there's a strong community around you. It's not just the guys in the house; it's the guys that lived there before. Like your hand is held. You have every opportunity to do this thing the right way. It's all in front of you. All you have to do is follow the rules. You know what I mean? All you have to do is do your chore. All you have to do is sign out. All you have to do is show up for the house meeting. You know, do GI, you know, stuff like that. Keep it clean. Hold each other accountable. Like, sober living to me is the most refreshingly transparent, life on life's terms way to get sober that there will ever be. And you know what's funny is it's fucking changed so much in the last 10 years. Like when I went to sober living, like now medication assisted treatment is everywhere, right? It is the likelihood that you come out of an institution not on some sort of medication assisted treatment is, you know, if you look at the huge socioeconomic group of the whole country, is low. Like insurance companies push Suboxone or all kinds of medications on us as drug addicts and alcoholics, you know?
Yeah.
But back then, well, you know, even 2018, 2019, most sober livings, you couldn't be on meds.
Right.
That was the deal.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care if they gave you a bunch of Seroquel or gabapentin when you got out. Put that shit in the trash. You know what I mean? If you can't sleep,
And
take
that was
some
extreme the other way.
That was extreme.
Like that was extreme because people do have mental
100%.
health issues that you need. Listen, if you have a chemical imbalance, it's not going to fix itself.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
No, I
so
agree
there
with
might
that.
be some medication that you need, not traditional MAT, you know what I mean? But just
Right.
like mental health.
Well, everything.
Oh, like SSRIs and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
different.
But
yeah.
back in the day, traditional sober homes wouldn't let you
100
bring that stuff in. And that was good for you.
Yeah. So like I've never at our houses we never didn't allow any medication. You know what I mean? Like we like if somebody was on medication, they could, like, within reason, if it wasn't like abusable, we would
Right.
like, for a while, that's how we did it. Things have changed a lot. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Things have changed a lot with regulation. So before, there was no regulatory agency for recovery houses in
Really?
Pennsylvania. Yeah,
wow.
there was like a nonprofit that you could opt in, like PAR and NAR. You could do that, which we did. You know, especially during, like, we had to make sure everything was perfect going through litigation, right?
sure.
So we had every certification we could at the time. It wasn't an option to have Pennsylvania certify the houses. Now, just recently, over the past 2 years, Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs is overseeing recovery housing now, which is
It's regulated by the state.
That's a good thing.
it is a good thing.
No?
I don't think so.
it's
I
a
mean,
good-
somebody has to regulate it, though.
No, it does need to be
Otherwise, you'll
regulated.
end up with a bunch of...
We were the first people. We were like, yeah, let's regulate, you know, because the thing is, like, running a recovery house, like, sometimes, like, you're almost embarrassed to tell somebody because, like,
Yeah.
how many bad programs there are.
Exactly.
So it's like people
Oh,
like,
like
you tell-
flops and stuff like
right.
that.
So you tell
Yeah.
people you run a recovery house, and they're like, oh, this guy's a scumbag. And he's like, you know, like, I at least felt that way. That might just be me, but like you know, I think it was because there's always horror stories about you know different programs. So I do believe regulation's important. I think that like there is some things that need to, like, I think there should have been more communication with people who are actually operating recovery houses before they made the regulations, because they actually look a lot more clinical than they do like as like more of like a recovery community, right? But yeah, so we do have MAT housing, you know, and I think like, and I do believe that for some people that is a necessary thing.
Absolutely.
Like, it really
I
is.
agree.
It really is. There's, you know, everybody's different, and like I got sober. I'm like an AA dude, you know. I got sober. We all think that our way is the only way because it's what we have had experience with.
Exactly.
You know, but there's all different kinds of alcoholics. There's some people that are drinking just because of the trauma that they've been through. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like once you address the trauma, it might not be the same, right?
Yeah.
So, but like a lot of the people that I gravitate to are people like me that actually need the experience that I had, right? So, but like, you know, like, so we do have MAT housing, and we it's been successful. You know what I mean? We do keep it separate just because like a lot of times like there's judgment, there's stigma, and then there's also like temptation for people.
Of
right?
course.
So it's like you want to like kind of reduce any possibility of temptation. DDAP gave me trouble for that at one point, or the county did, because they're like, well, it can't be licensed by DDAP if you don't take MAT in that house specifically. I was like, well, we take Vivitrol, we take Sublocade, the shot, you know, so
Yeah,
like,
okay.
so like that's enough, and that seemed to suffice for them. But
That's medication assisted treatment
Right.
in its
yeah,
purest
exactly.
form, I guess.
Exactly. But like, and the way things are today, like, you know, like some people can overcome their mental health stuff without medication, but some people really do need medication for it, you know? So, but you know, like that, I'm not a doctor, you know,
Totally.
I kind of stay out
Same.
of that, you know? So and I try and follow directions the best I can, you know? So, but yeah, it's, you know, like, I think my biggest struggle though, well, I've got a couple of them. Like, well, a lot of the stuff that the county, so we're credentialed by both Montgomery County, Bucks County, and Pennsylvania for Sunlight of the Spirit. And I think that the, like, with that comes like so much compliance and paperwork, and as a recovery house owner, you don't really make money like that. You know what I mean?
No,
you really
no,
don't.
yeah,
like,
sure.
Like a lot of people think like, oh, you own all these houses, you must have all this money. Like, and really like we have paper thin margins. There's over COVID, like, you know,
course.
our census dropped because I was scared to bring people in. And we ended up having to sell one
People
of our
couldn't pay
houses.
rent,
Yeah. So like a lot of different factors. You
Oh,
know?
you had to sell one off?
Yeah,
back
I did.
then?
I did at that
That
time,
sucks.
you know, but so like with that compliance, I had to hire more people just solely to do paperwork, you know, and,
Right.
but yeah, I think like for us specifically, like the biggest fight is I just opened like a clinical operation too. It's called Sunlight Wellness and Recovery. It's like, I've got like an amazing team there. It's like
What do you do there?
so there we're doing like clinical. So like,
like
PHP,
regular
IOP.
treatment? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we got, you know, like we've got like EMDR, like trauma trained clinical director.
Good,
You know,
good.
we're very, very focused. Our main focus is there is like, male trauma. Like I feel like for me, having been through that, like I feel like it's not being addressed. I feel like it's it's a bigger problem than anybody realizes, and I think it's really like starting to like come out and be more known. And I want to be the one. I want to find resources for these guys because they're me. They are me.
Yep.
Like I want them to discover like what their potential really is in life. And so that's one. I think like our other thing is like our working professionals track and failure to launch, like the people like me that had been to 13 treatment centers that just wasn't able to get the
Sure.
the willingness yet. So the one problem is that like for our houses in general, so we are in like the Lansdale Hatfield area. We do see a lot of Medicaid too. Like at our houses we probably like at like 50% Medicaid right now. But the problem is when we get somebody with Medicaid, the counties are requiring that they go to treatment as part of their, agreement for funding for the housing.
Sure.
But there is no treatment for them. Nobody accepts Medicaid with like close to Lansdale and Hatfield.
Yeah,
they
that's
have to
tough.
go on a bus 45 minutes all the way to Norristown.
Yep.
Or they have to find a ride to Sellersville. So we've been fighting, like we're trying to get a Medicaid contract, and it's just kind of been an uphill battle, So I'd say that's like my biggest struggle today. But
You'll get there, brother.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
always had good luck with that.
That's a
kind
process.
Of stuff. Yeah,
That's a
It's
long process too.
It's a process. I think like really what it is, they were saying something about not accepting in any new providers right now because they are over budget from the last year or something like that. But I'm just saying, well, here's a large section of underserved people, right?
That's
like,
right.
And I feel like that's a crisis. It really is. Like if people are in need of services and they're not getting them, like, that's a real problem. So
Yeah.
we do whatever we can. Like a lot of times we'll just scholarship and we'll treat them for free, so, but yeah, but like all in all, it's been an amazing journey. Like, like I know that this is, my whole life, everything that I have today, is grace, like, and I know that today I'm grateful for everything that I've been through the pain that I've been through in my childhood, through, for my addiction, like it's a blessing if you look at it. Like I wouldn't have the life today that I have,
Of course.
like it's allowed me, to seek things greater than myself. And as a result, like my life is full. I think most time, like I think most humans think they need happiness. They're trying to be happy, right? They're seeking happiness. And I think they're looking for the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You're not going to find happiness is fleeting. It's only, it's there and then it's gone. Like one moment I'll be happy, the next I won't. It's really circumstantial. But like today I know, like through the pain and everything that I've been through, is that like I have a reason I'm here. I have purpose today, and I think that if we can help people find, everyone's got purpose. Everyone's got
absolutely.
something that
Without a
they're
doubt,
really,
buddy.
really good at. Everyone's got a message that they have that someone needs to hear, and like when you know that you're living your purpose, like everything feels okay. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
you can walk around
dude.
a free
Yeah,
man,
it's never like what you think it is either. You always like try and fill the void with what you think's going to make you happy or fill you up, and it's never that, which is kind of nice.
Well, they say happiness is where you find it, but rarely where you seek it.
yeah, that's it.
And that's like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
like,
brother.
You're looking for it's already here.
Yup.
You know what I mean?
It's where's your attention? You know what I mean? It's the same thing, like you said, like seeking. That's so important. It's like whatever we're seeking is going to be what we find, right? Like
No, not always. I mean, if you're seeking something, like I've always wanted a Corvette.
right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, I think, oh my God, that'll be the ultimate happiness. I'm never going to own a Corvette.
You might.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You might.
But I think that'll make me happy. Well, you know what? I got 2 motorcycles too. Like so I found it.
Yeah.
Like it's where I am now. Like
Yeah.
it's not seeking that vehicle
that's
or
true.
that neighborhood you want to move into.
Right.
Yeah.
You're already happy where you're at.
I think the
Life's
problem.
plenty
The
fun.
problem.
You know?
The
Yeah.
problem really is where your attention is, right? Like, so it's the seeking, like the Corvette. You could probably still get a Corvette, right? It might not be the most responsible thing for you to do.
Of course not.
You
Of
know,
course not.
but like if you're determined enough, I guarantee you'd have
But
it.
that's
right.
like, the point is like, that's where I'm seeking. I mean, technically I'm not seeking that, but if I was, like, you're seeking happiness, because you're looking for a particular car or
Right.
whatever. Happiness is where you're at already.
You're looking
Yeah.
in the wrong place. Yeah.
You know, I feel like I use the term rich, like, and it's got nothing to do with money.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with your happiness
Yep.
in your job, in your family, in your whole life. Like that makes you a rich guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And that's what, well, society tells us, right? That, like, you know, you get the Corvette, you'll be happy. You get the
Yeah, of
nice
course,
house, you'll
of
be
course.
happy. That's what society
course.
tells us, right? But like for alcoholics, like, you know, like, well, for people in general, I think, you know, but especially alcoholics, because I believe we're more sensitive people, right? It just becomes a barrier to what's
Yeah.
really important, right? So it's like,
Sure.
you know, I've had the experience in, you know, like of having nice things at times in my life, you know, and it really just becomes one thing I'm worried about losing. I'm worried I have to protect. I have
You're
to
stressed
defend,
out about
you
it.
know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And it's like where I could otherwise be, my focus could be somewhere else. Like I could be focused on how can I serve the people around me or serve God, right? And one's going to nourish my soul, the other is going to slowly corrode it. And the other thing is like when I put too much value, like with material things is you know, when you have everything, right, and you feel like absolute dirt, you know, like there's a disconnect there. Like when I feel like absolute dirt and I'm living like an animal, there's a balance there. It makes sense. You know what I mean? When I have everything and I still feel like crap, it's just a backdrop for the emptiness I feel inside.
Yeah.
Me, right. So
Sure.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, I mean, this was a really cool episode.
I knew it would be a
And
good one, just because
yeah,
Matt's
we're
got
real
such a
real
great
happy
story.
that you came on.
Yeah,
We
thanks. Anytime
really
you guys
appreciate
want,
it.
I would love to come back. I've never done anything like this before. So.
It was fun,
Yeah,
right? You had a
yeah,
good
it's
time?
Cool. Yeah.
I'm glad you came on,
Yeah.
brother.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you making the trip because I know you drove an hour or whatever, and we appreciate you coming across the river and
I'm happy to be here.
definitely.
Thanks, buddy.
So we really appreciate it. And with that, we're going to sign off. My name is Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Matt, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Matt, appreciate you. And again, this is Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. You got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. With that, God willing, see you all soon.